General equations. Well, the good news is we're not really learning anything new today. We're just going to be combining things that we previously learned. And like the last lesson, we did two-step equations. And prior to that, we did linear equations. Now, linear equations, we learned a lot of new things. But last time, we just learned about how to combine two different things. And now we're going to be doing several things, like this problem here. And we are going to start here with multiplication because there's nothing to add in the parentheses here. So we're going to multiply everything in the parentheses. That would be 6x minus 12. And let's add like terms. There's no x's except for the 6x. And we have a negative 12 and a positive 9, which leaves us with negative 3 on the left-hand side. And there are no more like terms on the left-hand side to add. There are no like terms on the right-hand side to add. And so let's move the negative 3 over to the right-hand side. That's right, we need to get rid of the negative 3, so we're going to add positive 3. Whatever we do to the left-hand side, we need to do to the right-hand side. So let's bring everything down. 6x plus 0 equals 6x, so we're going to bring that down. Negative 3 plus 3 is 0, and we're not going to bring anything down. Bring down the equal sign. And 15 plus 3 is 18. 6x equals 18. Now, how are we going to get rid of that 6 in front of the x? That's right, if we multiply by 6, we need to divide by 6. If we divide by 6 on the left-hand side, we're going to divide by 6 on the right-hand side. So we have 6x divided by 6 equals 18 divided by 6. And 6x divided by 6 is just plain old x. And 18 divided by 6 is 3. And x equals 3. And that is our answer. Now let's try something that we haven't done before. We're going to have variables on both sides of the equal sign. Now we've had units on both sides of the equal sign, but we haven't had variables on both sides of the equal sign. But we're going to see that we handle it the same way. So like I promised you, we have variables on both sides of the equal sign. We have 4x minus 6 equals 2x plus 10. And we're going to bring this 2x over here. But let's get rid of our units first. That's right, on the left-hand side we have negative 6, so we're going to have to add positive 6. Whatever we do to the left-hand side, we do to the right-hand side. So that's going to be negative 6 plus 6 and positive 10 plus 6. Let's bring both of those down. Negative 6 plus 6 is 0, so we won't bring anything down there. 10 plus 6 is 16, so we'll bring that down. And let's bring the rest of that equation straight down without adding or subtracting anything from it. And that will give us 4x equals 2x plus 16. And I think it's pretty obvious that we need to eliminate the 2x. We need to bring it over to the left-hand side. And how are we going to do that? Now what we did before is we divided by 2. But if we divide by 2, that's going to give us x. That is, it's going to leave the x there. So what are we going to do? We're going to subtract. We're going to subtract 2x. Okay, before we just wanted to get rid of the coefficient. But now we need to get rid of the entire 2x. The only way to do that is to subtract. And whatever we do to the right-hand side, we're going to do to the left-hand side. So there we go. We're in balance again. And moving left to right, let's add 4x and negative 2x. You'll notice that a lot of times I say we're going to add negative 2x. If you want to say we're going to do 4x minus 2x, that's fine. And that would be 2x. We bring down the equal sign. 2x minus 2x is 0, so we're not going to bring that down. And we didn't add anything to the 16, so we'll bring that straight down. And we have 2x equals 16. Now we have x with the coefficient, and we're multiplying that coefficient times x, so 2 times x. To get rid of 2 times x, we're going to divide it by 2. If we're multiplying, we need to do the inverse. We need to divide. And repeating myself for about the 50th time, whatever you do to the left-hand side, you need to do to the right-hand side. That's right, 16 divided by 2. So we have 2x divided by 2 equals 16 divided by 2. And let's take care of the left-hand side first. 2 over 2 is 1, and that gives us 1x. 1x equals 16 over 2, or 8. And x equals 8. And that is the solution to our problem. Now let's deal with an equation with a negative coefficient. And there's our negative coefficient. And we have negative 3x plus 9 equals 6x minus 27. And we're going to move the negative 3x over to the right-hand side. And we're going to move our units first, which means we're going to move the units to the other side. That's right, to get rid of negative 27, we need to add positive 27 to both sides of the equation. And we are going to bring down the negative 27 and the positive 27. That's 0, so there won't be anything there. And 9 plus 27 is positive 36. And then we're going to bring down both of our variables. There we go. We have negative 3x plus 36 equals 6x. So like I promised you, we are going to bring the negative 3x over by adding positive 3x to both sides of the equation. So let's bring everything down now. We have 36 equals 9x. And like we explained before, it doesn't matter which side of the equal sign the variable is on. But we do need to eliminate that coefficient. Dividing by 9 on both sides of the equation, and 9x divided by 9 is 1x, and 36 divided by 9 is 4, and 4 equals x, or x equals 4, and that is our solution. Now let's try a general equation, a multi-step equation, where we're using parentheses. There we go. And we have 2 times parentheses x minus 5, close paren, plus 3x equals x plus 18. Now there is nothing to add or subtract or multiply in the parentheses, so there is a number attached to the parentheses. So we're going to multiply first before we do any addition. And that would be 2x minus 10. And there are no more parentheses, no more multiplications or divisions on either side of the equal sign. And so let's add and subtract. And we're going to add like terms. And on the left-hand side, there's only one unit, and that would be negative 10. So we can't add that to anything. We have 2x plus 3x. And that's 5x, so we have negative 10 plus 5x. And on the right-hand side, we have no like terms to add or subtract. So we're going to move the x on the right-hand side over to the left-hand side. And the reason we do this, we are going to move the smallest variable. Now x is smaller than 5x, so that's the one we're going to move. And the reason why we do that is because when we do, we're going to be left with a positive variable, which means we're not going to have to use any functions later to turn a negative variable into a positive variable and do that on both sides of the equation. You can do that, And as a matter of fact, most algebra books like you with your variables on the left-hand side of the equation. That's where Mr. Wallace and I agree. We don't care where your variable is. Let's make it as simple as possible. But in this case, it is going to be on the left-hand side. And we're going to add negative x to both sides of the equation. Now we have 1x minus 1x. And notice how I say 1x when I've told you not to write that number there. In your mind, if you say 1x, you will remember that that is the value of it. Now, a lot of people in their minds, they somehow see a 0 in front of that x. It is not a 0. It has a value, and that value is 1. So it's x minus x is going to be 0, and 5x minus x is 4x. And I did what I told you I don't like to do, which is moving my variables first, but that's fine. You can move the units first or the variables first. And so let's bring the rest of that equation down. And like we discussed before, we're ultimately trying to get our x alone. So the first thing we do is we get rid of our negative 10 with the positive 10 to both sides. And we're going to bring the negative 10 and the positive 10 down. That's 0, so we're going to leave that blank. And the 18 plus 10 is 28. And we're going to bring the 4x down, so we have 4x equals 28. And we're going to eliminate the coefficient, which is 4 to both sides. So we have 4x over 4 equals 28 over 4. 4x over 4 is x. And 28 over 4 is 7. X equals 7, and that is our solution. Now let's try a problem that is pretty much the same thing, only it has 2 parentheses in it. Okay, we have an equation with 2 parentheses, both on the left-hand side. In the first parentheses, there is nothing to add or subtract or do anything with. And the same is true with the second parentheses. So the multiplication of the first parentheses is 3. And the multiplication of the second parentheses is 4. No, it's not. It's negative 4. You better look at that negative sign and know that it applies to everything in that parentheses. Or you're going to end up with the first term being negative and the second term being positive, when that's not the way it's supposed to function. And that's 12x minus 15. And that will not apply to the second parentheses because it's separated by a negative sign. If a number is separated by a negative sign or a positive sign, it will not apply to the next multiplication factor. And so we have negative 4, remember that's negative 4, times the 2x, that's going to give us negative 8x, and negative 4x times the 1 is going to be negative 4. Remember that negative applies to both things in the parentheses, and the 4 applies to both things in the parentheses. And it's very easy to forget one of those things, so you better be practicing that. Okay, let's add the like terms, starting with the units first. Negative 4 and negative 15 equal negative 19. And let's add our variables. We have 12x minus 8x equals positive 4x. And let's move that negative 19 to the other side. Negative 19, let's add a positive 19 to that, which will make it 0. And 5 plus 19 is 24. And we didn't do anything to the 4x, so let's bring that down. 4 times x equals 24. 4 times x, let's get rid of that coefficient and divide the other side by the same number. 4x divided by 4 is x. X equals 24 over 4, which is 6, and x equals 6, which is our solution. Now we've gone through several equations and we've been applying several rules. And maybe it's getting a little confusing as to when we apply the rules, what are the rules to apply, And so let's use this system here. This is the 5-step process to solve linear equations. 1. Distribute through all parentheses. That, of course, means to multiply or sometimes even to divide through the entire parentheses. 2. Combine like terms on each side of the equation. Now, you cannot combine a term on the left side of the equation with a term on the right side of the equation. That's a different function. So what we do is we make sure that we can add all like terms on the left-hand side, then add all like terms on the right side, and then we start moving things around, but that's not combining. 3. Move all variables to one side and all the units to the other. Now, if you're not familiar with the term unit, I have been using it. A unit is a number. It can be an integer, it can be a fraction, but it does not have any variable attached to it. 4. Multiply or divide any coefficient. 5. Check your answer by plugging it back in for x to find a true statement. Now, Mr. Wallace uses the word plug. It's the same word as substitute or replacement. But the order of these steps is very important. You need to memorize the order of this. Now we're going to try two equations which look normal, but they have a funny result. Let's use the function of 3 times the parentheses. And we have 6x minus 15 equals 6x minus 15. Well, let's eliminate the variable with negative 6x on both sides. Let's bring it down, and we are going to have nothing left. Let's bring everything else down. And we have negative 15 equals negative 15. That's true, but we have no variable. Now, when this happens, when our variable is eliminated, that means you will be able to plug any number into x, and it will be true. Then the answer for x equals all real numbers. Now you can write x equals all real numbers, or you can use this funny symbol right here that has 2 bars before the r. That's what that means. That funny r there means all real numbers. But let's look at the other equation I promised you that's going to have a funny result. And like the last equation, we are going to distribute the outside number into the parentheses. And we have 6x minus 10 equals 6x minus 15. Eliminate the variables. So the variables are going to be eliminated from both sides. 6x minus 6x. 6x minus 6x. Let's bring everything else down. And negative 10 equals negative 15. Well, that's not true. So in this case, when we perform the function and the variable is eliminated completely, and the statement ends up not being true, then the answer to this equation, x equals empty set. Now you can write empty set, or you can use that symbol that I've used, but x equals empty set. And that will be the case when our variable is eliminated and we have a not true statement. And that is the end of this lesson. Homework is on page 42.